I just got a notification that said this meeting is being live streamed.
Yep, I was able to get it up and we are live.
Classic technology.
All right, Felicia, take it away.
Hey, everybody. This is just literally classic technology.
And we are live.
And let me say, okay, it looks like we might have a little bit of an echo. But hello, thanks so much for being here, everybody. What a important occasion that we're supporting our children, the children in our community. And we want to welcome you to the 13th annual People of Prominence with the Midwest College Project Grow and Go community. We can give some snaps. I know we're all muted. But again, this is important. This is important that we're all here to not only support each other, but to support our future, to support our kids. Programs like this is certainly what we need to make sure that they are not only prepared for the future, but they are able to compete in today's world as well. So just a couple of housekeeping announcements. Our cohort and families, we would like everyone to keep their laptops on as possible. I know it's really easy to get on mute and start working on some other business. I totally get it. But showing up and being here, it matters. And we're really fortunate to have this virtual opportunity. And since we are live streaming, we should have all cameras on at all times. So that's another reason to have your camera on. We want the world to see this, and we want them to know that we're not only here, we are engaged and we care. And so if you have any family, friends, alumni, you can shoot them a quick text, shoot them the link, ask them to join. They can also join at YouTube at MidwestCollegeProject.com. That'll be an awesome opportunity for them to also support what we're doing here today. So before we get into everything, I do want to welcome my co-host. We have Morgan Yancey that is with us. And Morgan, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you go to school, and what year you're in, and what you hope to study in college? And then you can take us right on the road.
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Morgan Yancey. I am a rising senior at Morgan Park Academy, and I hope to study dentistry in the near future. And I am super excited to be here.
Oh, that's wonderful, Morgan. Thank you. Let's get straight into this. We don't want to waste any time because we want to hear from all of our wonderful speakers today. So Morgan, maybe you can give us the rest of your welcome, and then you can introduce the first guest.
Which is me.
Absolutely. I want to say good morning and welcome everybody to the 13th annual People of Prominence, which I'm super excited to be able to co-host. And I want to welcome our first guest, Mrs. Criddle.
Thank you, Morgan. I'm so glad to be here, guys. I am the president and founder of the Midwest College Project. And for those of you that don't know, People of Prominence has been around for 13 years. And I am just super excited. Today in particular is near and dear to my heart. Not only because it's my birthday tomorrow and I'm excited to be celebrating with this audience, but most importantly, I want to make a huge announcement. For some, it may seem sad, but for us, we are ecstatic about this news. So as promised, here you have it. Today, on October 15th, beginning October 15th, 2023, the Midwest College Project will close its doors to future student applicants. I know that might sound sad to some, but we are immensely proud of the work that we have done to almost 1,400 young adults. Can you believe that? Every time I say it, I kind of just get teary-eyed and I get emotional about it, because we have had the pleasure and the privilege of watching students just like you and many others along their career trajectory towards becoming prominent members of society. And I couldn't be more proud. But guess what? You know, in true Mama Criddle fashion, I will not leave you with just this news today. We have exciting news to share. Beginning on January 2024, every single Midwest College Project alumni has a special gift. For the remainder of their career trajectory, the Midwest College Project is partnering with a cluster of International Coaching Federation coaches from across the globe to be able to provide our alumni with continual career and life coaching. So what does that mean for you? That means when you need help with a resume, a LinkedIn, contract negotiation, interview prep, anything that relates to your career, or you just simply need to talk, you need to plan and prepare, you need that support. You've got a lifelong vessel to be able to do that. And so you'll be able to learn more about that by going over to our website, post this session, and finding out about what that really means for all of our alumni. It's a huge opportunity. But beyond that, I wouldn't leave you with just this information. I heard it. I've heard your cry. I've heard the voices ask me repeatedly, when are we coming back together? When are all 1,400 young adults being able to come back together? And that includes this current cohort. Well, we heard it and we're responding to it. Next year, 2024, you can hear about it, learn all the particulars about it on our website. We are having a all cluster, all cohort event, 4 days and 3 nights in the fabulous Jamaica. So we cannot wait to bring all of you together to celebrate, to live, laugh, and love on one another, bring the family, the whole crew down. It's going to be amazing. So I felt like today was the best day, considering we got a weekend of fun, exciting announcement and activities to go on, to be able to share with our community. And just once again, to say thank you for all the amazing work that you have done and you will continue to do. And so with that being said, I look forward to having you guys check us out on www.midwestcollegeproject.com to learn more about the great road ahead. All right, Morgan, back to you.
That was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Ms. Criddle. So up next, our next speaker is Elizabeth Leba. Elizabeth is a highly rated author of #1 new release in a workplace culture, I'm Not Yelling, which is part strategy for savvy Black businesswomen navigating a predominantly white corporate America. Some of her signature topics include women empowerment, inclusive and empathetic workplace, belonging and inclusion, and being your authentic self. She's also been seen in Forbes, Time, and CNN. So Elizabeth, over to you.
Hi, Elizabeth. You guys can give her a round of applause, give her some snaps, give us her claps. Welcome, 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 because we love to support the excellence. How you doing, Elizabeth?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you to Morgan for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate that.
It was awesome. It's awesome because you're awesome. So thank you so much for being here. We certainly appreciate you lending your time. I'm not yelling. What is this about? That immediately makes me want to yell.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Not Yelling is my book that came out at the end of last year. It is a bestseller. It's been in the top few thousand sellers on Amazon. It's sold about 10,000 copies so far. So in under a year. So the really the reason why I decided to write that book and why I called it I'm Not Yelling is because of the unique experiences of women in the workplace, particularly racialized as Black women, who are encountering statistically, and we know that studies show, are encountering a lot of, I would say, challenging experiences in the workplace. So in my time on LinkedIn, networking with a lot of women, also I had a podcast on the Ebony Podcast Network where I interviewed about 200 Black leaders across America, and about half of them were women. I kept seeing a recurring theme of Black women saying they were experiencing things such as imposter syndrome. They felt like they weren't able to get a mentor. They were worried about their natural hair, about showing up as their authentic self. They were talking about microaggressions. I started to see this pattern, and it wasn't just in one industry. I work in higher education. I've been in higher education for 20 years. But it was in media, it was in marketing, it was in finance, it was in banking, it was in healthcare. There really wasn't one industry where Black women were not saying, I'm exhausted, but I don't know why. And I really wrote the book to set out to figure out, well, why are all Black women having this experience? And when I say all, statistically, the majority of women were saying that these were the things that they were experiencing. And I just wanted to understand why. I call the book my love letter to Black women, because I feel as though Black women needed to be encouraged. Black women needed to understand that these situations and these challenges that they were encountering were not unique to them. Because what I was seeing with a lot of Black women that I was speaking with, professional Black women, they were saying, hey, I'm highly educated. I went to an elite school. I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, I have a PhD, but I still don't feel valued. And that makes me feel like I'm not worthy, like I don't belong in these spaces. that feeling just felt so sad. It was heartbreaking to hear that when people are at the sometimes regional level of their company, sometimes at the top level, VP globally of their country, of their company. And they were just saying, I don't feel like I'm worth being here. I don't feel like I'm accepted or that I'm valued here. So the book really is a compilation of all the research I did about how Black women are experiencing these workplaces, what were some of the challenges, and also giving them some strategy about how they can maneuver and deal with those. I think the biggest thing that came out of it was understanding that it's not you, sis. And I think that was one thing I just kept saying, was that as I started to look at the research, it all came from a lot of environmental issues, trauma, systemic issues. Not that the women were lacking confidence or they needed to get more education. It was really that their self-love needed to be bigger to outmatch all of the environmental pressure and stresses that were coming from the workplace and also from society at large. So that's why I wrote the book, I'm Not Yelling. It's really, I'm Not Yelling is something that, you know, the angry Black woman was another stereotype. That's the idea that when Black women are animated and we're speaking and we're just speaking our minds, that's not bad. That's not wrong. Culturally, that's acceptable and it's not unprofessional. So just speak your mind, sis. That's pretty much what the book was about.
I love it. I love that you said it's a love letter to Black women. We have a lot of young people on the call. They have yet to enter into their careers, I imagine. So I definitely want to make sure that our message is catered towards them. What's something that you found, and I do want to note your point that you literally just made that was like, it's not you, it is an environment. It is a culture, a society that we are within, and we happen to be sometimes one of the onlys, sometimes one of the others. But we still have to navigate it. And at the end of the day, you can only control yourself. Correct. So what is something that we can leave the young people in the call with today, and even some of the not so young people with, something that they can work on and work to expect and work through to prepare yourself? I remember I started in corporate America in television, and I was 22. And it's one thing to have the skill set to do the job on television. We all have talent that you want to hone. It's a whole nother thing to navigate the political scene, the office workspaces, the promotions, to deal with the people that are there. Those are kind of two different things. So what's some things from your experience and or your research that you can share with young people today that they can better prepare or work on themselves as they prepare for their careers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The beginning of the book, the first couple of chapters, I talk about my childhood and my teenage years in high school and going to college. So I really start there because I feel as though that was the foundation of my identity. In high school, I went to a predominantly Black high school, and I talk about that in the book in terms of that was really how I was able to shape the person I am today. I had a lot of great role models. I went to school in east side of Fort Lauderdale, predominantly Black. My high school was actually the segregated high school, which means that prior to integration, that was where the Black children in Fort Lauderdale were mandated to go due to segregation, due to legal Jim Crow law. So I start there when I talk about myself, because that's really the beginning of who I am as a person. The fact that I had a lot of teachers, mentors, coaches, guidance counselors that poured their hearts into me. My parents are immigrants. I also was an immigrant to the country, so I didn't get to America until I was 11. So a lot of the book is really framed around the beginning, which is that I started not as an author, not as a professor, not as any of that. I was coming from a pretty poor background on the east side of Fort Lauderdale. 80% of the students there were on free lunch. So I really relied on teachers and mentors to help me to become the person I am today. So a lot of how that was done with the teachers that were at my school was they would really take the time to tell us our worth. And when I talk about worth, I think when we think about it as an adult, we think about it in terms of the workplace. We think about it promotion. We think about wages. We think about, are we at the table? But for me as a child, I just wanted to know, who am I? Where do I belong? What's important about me? Am I cared and loved by my community? And how am I loved? And I think for a lot of us, our parents were busy. Our parents were working 2 jobs perhaps and didn't have the time to really frame that for us. So that was really primarily coming from the community. So I think for me, if I'm sharing things with young people, I do that in the classroom since I teach freshman English, I think my biggest lesson for them is to really lean into who you are. And when I say who you are, not who the world wants you to be, but who you really are at your core. Love yourself, believe in yourself. I was always taught to have pride in myself and in my culture. And I always say that learning Black history saved my life because I really didn't know who I was. I was coming from the UK and I didn't have a really good sense of what Black identity really meant. So I read, all of the amazing thinkers like Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison and James Baldwin. And I really filled myself up with positivity, which is why my office is this way, because I believe that if you see it, you can be it. And a lot of times our children don't see what they can be. So my thought in writing the book was also that I wanted to write to myself as a teenager. What would I have needed to be able to navigate by the time I got to an adult? I often feel as though if you start reading these types of tools and strategies when you're an adult, you've already been indoctrinated to believe that you're less than. So now you're climbing out of this pit of I'm less than. How do I get to just level before you can even excel? So I think for young people, my advice would be to lean into the voices of our ancestors. They didn't steer us wrong. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. And I feel as though a lot of times that's the strength that I draw on. And I feel as though it's really important for young people to read about how great they are. I think that that's a really big thing around the country right now. Black history and Black culture, African history, because our culture did not start with slavery. Our culture started with brilliant civilizations in Africa. And Miriam Makeba said this, the conqueror came, the conqueror saw, the conqueror wrote. So the stories that they wrote about our ancestors, our foremothers and our forefathers were not true. And we have to really reckon with that sometimes stories can be weaponized. It's called propaganda. And we really need to be in tune with the idea that our history is unique. Our culture is beautiful and wonderfully made. Our culture is the origin of all culture and all civilization. So I talk about that in the book, that I was taught that in high school. And then when I went to college, I didn't necessarily have the tools or the mentorship because I went to University of Florida. So I think that for our young people, it really warms my heart that my Sarah Jacqueline Criddle, she talks about this idea of not only helping children in high school, but also creating a support system and mechanism for them as they navigate college and as they navigate the world after that. I didn't necessarily have that, but at least I had the foundation that I knew my worth. So I didn't go into spaces where people didn't necessarily treat me kindly, thinking that it was my fault. I always said, well, if they don't treat me kindly, that's fine. I will still show up and do what I know I can do because I know that I'm valuable and I know that I'm worthwhile. And I think it's really important for young people not to look for validation from outside, but understand that their worth comes from inside. They were already worthy the moment that they were born. They don't have to yell by the first time they cried. That is important. Your voice is important. You cried and now you're in the world. So it's our job really as a community. We think about this idea culturally of Ubuntu, that without you, there's no me. Without me, there's no you. So that means we all as a collective really need to come together. And I think that a part of why I wrote the book was because I wanted to make that clear, that I didn't just start here. So I was like, started from the bottom, now we're here. But what did that bottom look like? It looked like, for me, I talk about in the book, a poor Black girl sitting outside my school. And it was, just the dilapidated area. But the teachers told us, don't worry about what's going on outside. You're in here. Get this education, get this knowledge, and this will provide you with the foundation that you need. So I think that would be my biggest lesson for young people, is to know who you are, be strong in who you are, lean on the resources that you get. So if you get mentoring if you get coaching, if you get community members that support you, lean into that, because that is our strength. That is our culture. Our culture is not about, hey, if I get to the top, hey, see you there. Our culture is about, let's all get there together. So lean into the real true culture of what we are as a community. We have always been that, and we will always be that.
Amen. We're going to give some snaps for that. I think what I really hear you saying is you made a clear decision at it appears to be a very young age that not only were you not going to let your environment dictate who you were, who you would become, your potential, or anything about your future, but also you made a clear decision to educate yourself, to read, to lean into support systems, to I heard you mention a couple, your teachers really encouraged you and said, you're not of this environment, you are more than this. And I feel like a lot of people may be in a position where they may or may not come from the environment that fosters and cultivates growth. However, you made the decision yourself and I think that's a key takeaway for a lot of people, that it doesn't matter necessarily where you come from. But also I want to flag that you said you educated yourself, you looked into our culture, you researched our culture, things that you could identify with, things that you could connect with. And here's my little mini PSA. This is not only, oh, you can't see it because of the thing. Okay, I'm holding up my cell phone. This is not only a place to have fun or a place to connect or be on social media or post cute pictures or see what Krishan and Blueface are doing, or all these other people. I'm even upset that I know their names. Look at this, look at Brazen laughing at me. I'm saying that this is also a tool. This cell phone is a tool. I hope kids still go to the library, but this cell phone is a tool, a place that you can also connect and cultivate and do some of that research that she's talking about, and connect with yourself in different ways and with your history and with others as well.
And one final point, I'm sorry, Felicia, for the students that are on, or parents or mentors and those that coach students, I also have a free resource. It's called Black History and Culture Academy. It actually used to be a paid subscriber resource for adults. And what I did is, when all of the pushback against Black history started, especially at the beginning of this year, as well as a little bit last year, what I decided to do this year over the summer was convert it into a free learning platform. It has 30 plus courses. They're 4 module short courses. It's all online. It's asynchronous. Students can log in every time they complete a course. They get like a certificate that shows that they completed the course. And it's just resources on African history, African culture, oral history, Black American history, poetry, dance, anything about Black history, culture, African history and culture is included. And I really wanted to provide something where if teachers and parents are saying, I really want my child to learn Black history, but I don't know where to start, this is a good starting place, because it's history chunked into very small, manageable doses where students can just jump in and jump out and just learn something, maybe learn about HBCUs. What are HBCUs? There's a course on that. So I really encourage, and if I'm sure Sarah, I will give her the link to post later, but it's basically www.blackhistorycultureacademy.com. So students are able to log on, create a login. I approve it just to make sure that we keep the environment safe. So they just fill out a few screening questions. The parents can do so as well as teachers. Log in and free access for life.
Absolutely. Okay, blackhistorycultureacademy.com.
Correct.
Right. So that'll be great to go if you want to help kind of facilitate some of that self-learning, Black history learning, and parents can do it along with their kids. That might be good.
A lot of parents are doing it with their kids.
Yes.
And it has there's 730 students that are in there so far since July. I think I started it. So.
I tell you, I felt like I grew up knowing Black history. I came out the womb with my fist up, knowing who my parents are and who I married. But you find there is always something you don't know and something you need to learn. And we should note that we have the link, the Amazon link to your book. It has been placed in the chat, and we're going to try to put it in some other places as well, just so people can get it and be aware of, and they can connect with you as well. Can you give us quick social media before Morgan wraps us up and takes us to the next speaker?
Yeah, the easiest place to, and I just dropped the link for Black History Culture Academy in the chat, but the easiest place for people to reach out to me is probably on LinkedIn, because that's where I'm most active and available. So if they go on LinkedIn, all they would have to do is put my name in the search engine of the platform and just send me a connect request and I'll connect with you.
Okay, everybody, Elizabeth Liba, give her a clap, give her some hands, give her some snaps. Thank you so much for your time and for just pouring some light and sharing what you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Morgan Yancey, take us away.
Alrighty, that was absolutely inspiring and cultivating. So thank you so much to both Felicia and Elizabeth. But we're going to keep the greatness going. And next joining us is Krista Jackson. Krista Jackson is an American basketball influencer, creator, and host, born in Southern California and then raised in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. She's a popular influencer and engager on TikTok and Instagram with over 15.3 million followers. Krista is most known for being the 13th female ever in history to play on the renowned Harlem Globetrotters, and she was recently featured on season 4 of The Circle Netflix. When she isn't working, she's recently launched her nonprofit organization, I Am Movement Incorporated, primarily focused on women empowerment and geared towards girls ages 6 through 18. She's a passionate advocate for human and animal rights, and some of her favorite pastimes include travel, food, and dogs, which are my favorite as well. So, Krista, over to you.
Wow, that was a really long bio.
What'd you
Good,
say?
how are you? That was a really long bio. Sorry about that.
No, it wasn't a long bio. This is not the time to be shy or to be humble, because we want to hear about all of your great and wonderful achievements. Because as we know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. You kind of seem like you're forging, you're forging your own path here. Tell us about your Harlem Globetrotters experience and being the 13th woman ever to be a part of that. Let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, first off, it was an amazing experience. It's been around for 90 plus years. So the fact that it's kind of weird because it was like a full circle. So growing up, obviously, I've been to a Harlem Globetrotter game. And then next thing you know, I'm getting a call from somebody like, hey, you want to try outs for the Globetrotters? I'm like, wait a minute, girls don't even play. So what are you really calling me for, type of deal, right? And then, I found out that they ended up playing, did the tryout, made a team. Then end up, so like when you sign autographs and stuff, I'm on one side of the rope when I was younger. Now I'm on the other side of the rope playing for the team. So it was amazing. I traveled the world, over 13 countries in less than 3 years. Been able to kind of be an inspiration that I never thought that I would be. I mean, growing up, I loved basketball, obviously. Was playing since I was 7 years old. For whatever reason, I'm not sure. Just kind of, my dad was training my brother. I asked him to train me, which he's trash, guys, by the way. He was not good. Somehow it worked out. For whatever reason it worked out. I don't know. But basically, yes, I trained with him, and then I ended up basically, I don't know. I mean, I fell in love with it. So I moved forward with it. And then, it's a weird story to kind of come across, because when you fall in love with something, like, well, at least for me, for basketball, it wasn't like I wanted to be famous. I wanted to play on a professional team. I wasn't like, I want to play basketball to inspire girls, inspire boys. Like, that wasn't my goal. Just to be frank and honest with y'all. But when I ended up playing with the Globetrotters, I started getting DMs. I started getting kids running up to me and being excited and happy and DMing me about like, oh my God, like, you saved my life. You inspired me to do this. Like, I didn't want to play because I didn't know girls could play, because it's a male dominant sport. And so being able to be in that position that I'm in now to inspire others, it was life changing. It became an eye opener, like, wow, this is really what life is about. It's more meaningful. It's more than just getting a paycheck to do something that you love to do, but to actually make a difference in life with other people who struggled like me as a kid, where, I'm not tall, y'all. I'm like 5'4". Don't let the videos fool you, because people be like, oh, I thought you was going to be taller. I was like, me too. I'm still waiting for my growth spurt. So there's that. And then, so yeah, so like it's a cool it's a cool thing to kind of be just doing what I love to do and inspiring people. So that was a long form answer of what you asked. So yeah.
Hey, this is your show right now. This is your moment. So you have millions of followers. You've really leaned, it seems like you've really leaned into trying to inspire young women, which we'll get into that in just a little bit. But you were also on a Netflix show?
I was, yeah. It's called The Circle. It's like a social media influence style, non-scripted show. Yeah, how that came about was through social media. They DM me saying casting director, basically. It was, people ask me about it. If you haven't watched it, it's very intriguing. It's fun. It's entertaining. Being there and being in the process of it is actually absolutely boring, but fun at the same time. If you're in a room by yourself, you have no phone. You have, and granted, my work is social media right now, so I'm always on my phone, right? So there was no phone, there was no music, there was no TV, there was no nothing. You didn't talk to nobody, but like, except for the people that dropped off food and stuff like that for you to eat. So that process was boring, but like the experience itself was absolutely, it was fun. I didn't win, guys. I got kicked off. I was actually the second person to get kicked off, which is crazy because I do this for a living.
What were you guys competing for?
Okay, so basically, like, it's kind of like a popularity contest in a way, because it's like based off of you don't get to meet anybody. So you're secluded in one room. Okay, so everybody's secluded in their own room. We don't know who it is or nothing. So you could be kind of like a catfish if you want, or you can come and play as yourself. I played as myself, right? So basically you're chatting online and you're messaging people and you're creating these relationships, kind of like you do on social media, right? You haven't met anybody in person. So we're doing that. And you try to get to be where people like fall in love with who you are and you feel like a connection and are trustworthy and things like that. So you can make it to the end. So it's an elimination process. So if they think that you're a catfish or they think you're fake or if they think you're a threat, because at the end of the day, one person only wins and they get to win money. So see if somebody didn't like me or they thought I was a threat, but I got kicked off. I guess I'm not very good at social media, guys, because
Yeah.
I was the second person.
And now you're sitting here with us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about life as an influencer. I think that is a career path that we are seeing more and more these days. And I think our young people are seeing that this can be a viable career. You have 15.3 million followers on TikTok, 1.2 million followers on Instagram. There's a lot to unpack here, but let's start with how you want to build these millions of followers.
Well, first of all, you can call me old school, but I hated social media. I didn't even like touch screen. I had like one of those little BlackBerry joints where you just type in and I didn't want no touch screen. I was a caller. I wasn't even a texter. None of that, right?
I was overwhelmed when cell phones stopped having buttons. I was like, there's no button. Exactly. What am I going to press?
Like, right. I was like, this is not for me. But anyway, so it started getting a little bit more popular. This was back when Instagram used to, I don't know if y'all know, but Instagram used to be for like pictures of food. People used to take pictures of their food. And I was like, that's dumb. That's dumb. I don't need to see what you're eating because I can't even eat that. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, I don't want to eat that. I don't want to look at something I can't eat. Anyways, so that's when it was. But I ended up getting into, when I became with the Globetrotters, is really when I started doing social media, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. And this is when social media started kind of getting a little bit more trending. This is when the Instagram models were a thing, and actually and influencers were actually frowned upon. Oh, you're an influencer, like that type of deal, that type of vibe. But I was like, well, for some reason, it seems like it might be something. I don't know. For whatever reason, I don't have the absolute answer on why I did what I did. I was just like, oh, okay, well, I have a platform of being a Globetrotter, and I could reach a lot of people on social media if I build up something, and then maybe something can happen out of it, you know? So I just started posting videos of what people could see if they were at a game. But if they weren't on a game, they could see it on my page. So it'd be like spinning the ball on kids' fingers because their reactions would be like priceless. Just fun little things that happen in the game. Back like behind the scenes stuff type stuff that I would do with my teammates or our practices or just crazy trick shots and things like that. And it would go crazy and people loved it. And I was like, okay, people liking it, let's go. And so I started making more stuff. And then but I was like, dang, well, this is getting really repetitive. Like this got to get boring at some point. So I was like, okay, what else can I do? So I was like, well, okay, I like music. I like to dance. So slowly I started incorporating other things that I enjoyed doing into what my career is and what my passion is, right? So I'm good at basketball. I'm okay with dancing and I like music. So I try to find a way to put it all together. So that's essentially kind of what I do social media with, or what kind of videos I make. But it really, as time went on, it took me 3 years to even really make I'm sorry, not 3 years. It took me 5+ years to actually build something that I could actually make, monetize and make lucrative. So people look at it like social media is like, oh, that's a money maker. You can have a career, but it's still work. You're going from a 9-to-5 job into a 24/7 job. And that's real. Like it's fun. It's very flexible. You're able to do what you want in your own schedule, but it's kind of like having your own business. You become your own boss, but then you're finding ways to grow, you're finding ways to build, getting employees, whatever the case may be. You're working for yourself, but you're so passionate about what you're doing. You want to grow, keep going, and there's never a limit. So you're always putting in that work, but at least it's for yourself and it's investment for yourself as opposed to an investment for another company. So that's kind of how I look at it. But again, it's not always peaches and cream when it comes to social media, but it is a lot of peaches and cream. You know what I mean? So, but that's kind of how I came about it. And then just growing and becoming building on trends and things with music and such like that. But it's really finding out what it is that you're passionate about. Sorry if it's a little bit loud, but it's finding what you're passionate about and being able to then put it out to the world. And it's not always about what other people want to see, because that's not lasting. That's not going to last a very long time. It's what is it that makes you happy? What is it makes that you're not going to hate doing every day? If you have to make videos every day and I'll be like, dang, I gotta set up this, I gotta film this. If you don't like doing that, it's not gonna last very long. People are gonna see that. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into it and how I kind of keep motivated to doing it.
Absolutely. I'm literally looking at your Instagram page right now. You have a new follower.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, that's Krissa Jackson. I'm sure everybody has their phone sitting next to them. Krissa Jackson on Instagram as well as TikTok. I guess I also want to know, because I think it's important to know that you also have things going on outside of social media, because I think a lot of people today end up, especially this generation. I'm just over 30. And so I feel like I'm the last generation where we grew up without social media. So we know what life is like without it. Our young people today, they do not. Social media has been around since they've been around. And so I think it's important to realize that the world outside of social media exists, and that your business also outside of social media exists, because Instagram, TikTok, these are apps that we do not own, and they could be gone like that. And so you still have to have your life, your resume, your experience outside of that as well. Can we talk a little bit about that and how you're strategizing your business so that not only can you be successful with these social media platforms, but you can succeed without them as well?
Absolutely. So my main focus when it comes to that is I try to set myself up to where you'll see a lot of people who do social media, they flaunt, they buy designer, they do the biggest and baddest trips or the biggest and baddest cars and all that type stuff. I think that's just materialistic stuff to make you look cool. But are you going to be looking cool in the next 30 years when you don't wasted all your money and now you over here, what are you doing? What is retirement? So I think about that. I think about investments is more so of my long-term goal. It's what am I putting? I'm investing in myself to then invest in what I'm going to be able to do later on. So whether it be saving up to invest in properties or saving up to invest in companies, saving up to then, like for right now, I have a partner, a wife, and she does social media as well, but she's not as much into the social media part, but she wants to do more like physical things, like having a retreat business. And so those type of things, I'm like, okay, well, if you have something that you don't have to work, where it becomes a residual income, and you build up that retreat business where she has like girls trips and we have like couples retreats and stuff, but then you build it up to be enough to where you have somebody then working for you later on in the future, so that you can just go ahead and do whatever it is that you want on your own. But what I do for social media is kind of like, I use it as a platform to build and grow your business or your brand, so that it is self-sustainable for when social media is no longer existent. You have enough people that became familiar or became not your followers, but your supporters. So it's like, you don't even need to have social media, but they know about you. And then it becomes a word of mouth, which, and with regardless of social media or not, word of mouth is probably still to this day one of the biggest and best things as far as advertisement goes, regardless of social media. You have one person knows another person knows another person, it travels. You know, people like to gossip, you know what I mean? People like to talk. So at the end of the day, it's going to move just as much as it does with social media. Word of mouth does the same thing. And if not, even more powerful, because you trust that person that you know, as opposed to just trusting a video that when you look on TikTok, oh, where should you visit in these places? But you don't know them. They don't have the same taste buds as you. They don't have the same, you know, like they might not do the same things, or you guys aren't just similar. You know what I mean? So having those connections and relationships are huge. And you don't always, I do tend to use social media for relationships. Okay. So you DM people and then you go from there, but to really get a real relationship, it doesn't happen until you meet in person. And then you guys are able to vibe and really see if you guys connect. So like, if you use social media to introduce, right? That could be the same thing as like back in the day, cold calling somebody, right? And then you meet up with them at a coffee bar or something like that, and you go have coffee, but you're actually conversing with them in person as opposed to what you think they might be. And then things are different. Like when you're texting somebody, it could be translated different as if you were talking to them person to person. So those are all little things that I kind of use as far as being able to be self-sustainable when I get older, and outside of social media, so that you're really able to, again, be okay without it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, because we want to make sure that we're not only building this brand online, but also building this brand in the real world as well. And so a lot of
Absolutely.
people see what's going on social media and it looks really sexy, attractive. And it's like, yeah, but is it sustainable? Will you be able to put food on the table 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now?
Right.
So we got to think long-term as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah. Okay. We
Absolutely.
have a couple more minutes of your time before we
Absolutely.
go. You just leave our young people with an encouraging word or something that you live by or whatever you want to share. Let's give them a little bow before we go.
Okay. Well, my dad always said, if you do what you love, you won't have to work a day in your life. And for that, I really hold really, really deep. I mean, that's when I was saying, if you're passionate about, do something that you're passionate about, because it won't feel like you're working. And nobody really likes to truly like feel like they're, working 9 to 5, I have to go clock in, clock out. But if you're really doing something that you're passionate about, then it doesn't really matter. Like I just came across a gentleman that I at a jewelry store, and he was just like, I mean, he was ranting about how wealthy he was, but he was just like, I don't have to work here. I do it because I love what I do, and I love meeting new people, and I love just seeing people's faces when he's able to give them what they want or have been looking for, and things like that. So it's really about finding something that you're passionate about and doing. And then when it comes to, especially with social media, it's really not giving into the image and kind of like how people can pressure you with doing what it is that they think is good or cool or whatever the case may be. It's really focusing on yourself. And although that can sound selfish in a ways, but it's very important that you kind of like really take that in, because people will try to manipulate you in so many different ways to get forward in life. And so if you do plan on doing social media or whatever it is, it doesn't even have to be social media. It could be a corporate job. It could be whatever it is, but just knowing that staying strong to your morals and who you are as an individual, that is really what's going to keep you moving forward, as opposed to you taking in other people's thoughts and opinions. It's really who you are. So really focusing and honing in on who you are as an individual. So
encouraging you to have a strong sense of self. Everybody, this is Krista Jackson. Make sure you check her out on Instagram, on TikTok. Not only support her, but connect with her. Yes, snaps for Krista. Snaps for Krista. Connect with her, and then reach out to her. I mean, this is why we're bringing some big names in here, so that you guys can have an opportunity to network and get to know other people, and maybe some people who are doing things that you haven't even thought about doing. Really, really cool. Krista, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. All right, y'all. Have a good one.
Blessings. All righty. Morgan Yancey.
It looks like Morgan might have had a little bit of technical difficulty.
She probably stepped away for a bathroom break.
No, I heard that we're having some technical difficulties all over the globe. People are having Wi-Fi connectivity issues, but in keeping with the spirit of that, if you don't mind, I think I can help introduce. Is Morgan back? I see she's coming back on screen.
She's working on it.
I see her popped in and out just for a quick second, but if not, I will take the floor and go ahead and introduce our next guest, if that will help. All right, so to keeping us moving, up next, our extra special guest, Mr. Jawanza Hughes. Jawanza is the Chief Investment Officer of a small cap value co-portfolio manager at Morningside Management. And Morningside, he's a founding member of Chaining Capital Management and a portfolio manager of the Mal and large cap value products. So he is really a numbers kind of guy, a finance guru extraordinaire. And we are just so thrilled to have him here with us in the building today to talk about some of the work that he's doing with investment banking, some of the cool organizations that he's had the opportunity to engage with, as well as his board engagement. So without further ado, Mr. Hughes, welcome to the Midwest College Project.
Thank you. And good morning,
Welcome.
Everyone. Good morning. Good morning.
How you doing today?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I want to break it down for the people in the back. With your bio, it sounds like you work to manage other people's money and assets. Is that correct?
In a way, indirectly, I'm Morningside Asset Management. We're institutional and investment management firm. So we manage money for pension funds, endowments, not individuals. So indirectly, we could be managing your money if you're working for one of the pension funds that we manage, or one of the endowments whose money we manage, but we manage more on an institutional level.
Okay. Let's start off with some of your education, because I think you have a very unique experience. You went to some amazing schools. I see your undergrad was at Morehouse College, and then your MBA was from Harvard Business School. And we, of course, encourage our students to go to find their place at institutions that support them and work for them. But I love that you have this HBCU experience. You also have a PWI experience, but beyond that, a Ivy League school experience. Right. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about both. I don't want to ask you which one was better, because they both serve a purpose.
No, Morehouse, hands down. Morehouse, hands down. So that's, it's Morehouse, hands down. Morehouse,
I was hoping you would say that. I went to HBCU as well, North Carolina A&T. But yes, let's talk about Morehouse.
Well, Morehouse is probably, outside of marrying my wife, probably the best decision I ever made in my life. My mother went to North Carolina Central. My sister actually went to Spelman. So I have a brother gone to Hampton, and another went to Howard. But my parents always wanted us, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. So I grew up around Virginia, like literally around the corner from Virginia Union University, 30 minutes from West Virginia State, Norfolk State, and all these other HBCUs, all in the CIAA. So it was never a doubt to me that I was going to be going to a HBCU. It was just kind of dependent on where I would go. But the funny thing is that I went down to Atlanta, and this was in the like late 80s, and this is when Atlanta was really starting to actually kind of, you know, come alive. And my first trip down there was a school trip, and I met with a missions counselor. And once I walked out of the meeting with him, I was like, I told my mother, I was like, this is the only school that I'm actually going to apply to. She was a little afraid about that, but actually Morehouse and Harvard are the only two schools I've ever applied to. But
Wow.
Morehouse is, yeah. And so for me, Morehouse was, it was a nurturing environment. It was a competitive environment, but in a healthy, competitive way. You know, you wanted to do your best because that's what their expectations were of you. And then it's always a great thing to be around people who look like you, because that's not only affirming for who we are as a people, but it's also a support, a supportive function for you. And so my closest friends today are my guys from Morehouse, or my friends from Spelman. Like my closest friends today, I can go to any state in the United States. I can call someone. And if I don't know someone, I can call someone who would know someone. And so it was the most amazing decision that I ever made in my life.
Yeah, we want our students to go to wherever they can find their home and be successful, wherever they find they can thrive. But I'm sure this is a common conversation in a lot of households. You know, do we go to a HBCU? Do we not go to a HBCU? Will you be able to get the education level that you need at an HBCU? Will you be able to compete and when you graduate from an HBCU? What would be your message? We have students on this in this Zoom meeting, but we also have parents who are watching on YouTube. What's your message to them?
One time when I was in high school, I went to inner city all black high school in Richmond, Virginia, and I had friends who went to schools in the suburbs. And as I was, doing well and excelling, they would say, "Oh, well, yeah, you go to school, in the city, it's not as hard as this, whatever." So I came home one day and I mentioned it to my mom. I think I was a little down, and I'm a teenager, and she goes, "Trigonometry is trigonometry." It's like the answer's the same, no matter what book, no matter what what school you're sitting in. But if you think about, and I'll just do it from a Morehouse perspective, I have friends who are at the top of some of the largest financial institutions in the world, like trillion-dollar financial institutions, friends who are leading TWI institutions. And what you find is that when you believe in what you can do, you can compete against anyone because you just see that as doing what you've been, the gifts that you've been given. But I'll even go from a statistical standpoint, and if you look at the numbers, Morehouse is the largest feeder school out of all the schools in Georgia Tech, Emory, UGA, you name it, for Ivy League schools. Morehouse is the largest feeder school for African Americans, for Harvard Business School, for Harvard Medical School, for Harvard Law School. And we're competing on the same levels as all these other individuals are, no matter what institution that you kind of come from. I think that, as you said, Felicia, you go to the school that is best for you, and hopefully you have a plethora of choices. My son doesn't have any. I've already told him, you can go whatever school you want to, but my checks will be going to Morehouse. And he's 7 years old. What does he kind of know? But everyone has the opportunity. But I believe that when you are confident in your abilities, when you have been trained in your abilities, that translates, into any environment that you can be in. And people who really succeed, I believe, are people who have an internal confidence. It doesn't have to be outwardly, you don't have to have hubris, and humility is really a great thing to have, because in life, you'll always be humbled at some point. But I think that HBCUs, we have historically 70% of all doctors are from HBCUs and so forth. 80% of most lawyers from HBCUs. So the professionals that you see on a daily basis, regardless of what sector you're in, it's a high probability that at some point, if they look like us, they've come from an HBCU.
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit how you got into what you do. You are clearly a numbers guy, so we appreciate your nod to statistics that you just gave us. This isn't a career that you'll see on social media like that every day, but clearly it's still a viable career, else you wouldn't be here presenting with us. What do we need to know about that as we're choosing our majors and choosing what we want to do in life? What should we know?
I came into Morehouse. My mother was a social worker. My father was a teacher. So no one that I knew anything about what I do now, and my parents probably don't really know what I do now, and until this day. But and I had never heard of it, and that's the importance of what you guys are doing and what Jacqueline's doing, is that exposure. The only way you find out about something is exposure. And at Morehouse, the investment bank in the 80s and early 90s really weren't going to HBCUs. They were still just going to the Ivy Leagues, kind of. But then a couple of Morehouse graduates got into, were hired at Goldman Sachs, which is one of the largest investment banks on Wall Street. And they kind of realized, oh, wow, we can have a pipeline for some type of diversity. Very small. I mean, in my industry, I would say we're probably maybe 1%, 2% of the industry, kind of. And so you might see like a large African American owned firm like Ariel Investments. I think Ariel manages 16 billion or so. Ariel probably is not in the top 300 of the largest investment management firms. And they manage 16 billion. So you kind of think about how much wealth is kind of out there. But for me, it was just exposure. It was, some guys who went to Morehouse came down and they kind of talked about what they did. I started off Morehouse as as an accounting major, because one of my mother's friends said accountants the way they kind of go. I initially thought I was going to go into to do corporate law, even though numbers was always my thing. But I was over an aunt's house, and one of her friends who was a executive at H.J. Russell, which is a large Black construction company down in Atlanta, and he said, Juwanza, you have a personality. Why don't you change and become a finance major? Accountants count the money that finance majors make. And so that kind of clicked to me. And I literally that Monday changed my major. And when a guy by the name of Rob Crawford came down from Goldman Sachs and kind of talked about his job, and really at that point, at 21 years old, so he talked about the money that he was making. And that's what kind of clicked to me, kind of. But he also talked about the challenge of the job and the exposure of the job that he got. And so I interned. My junior year, I interned on Wall Street, and it was just, it was an amazing experience. And I kind of knew then that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I started off in investment banking, but even through investment banking, I eventually realized that I like picking stocks, and that's what I do for a living. And so I made the switch from investment banking, which is more transactional, to investment management, which is principal investing, which means we're actually managing people's money. But it's just exposure, it's just by the luck of the draw to some extent that when the investment banks started, to broaden their scope and to look for minorities, they actually chose the quote unquote the Ivy League of the minorities, the Howards, the Hamptons, the Morehouse. And I always tell people, and again, I love and have a lot of respect for HBCUs, but I always told people it's no coincidence that in my year at Morehouse, my graduate class, there were 300 people in our graduate class. There were 20 of us that went to work in various investment banks on Wall Street. Because I always tell people, when they come to Morehouse, they're only coming for Black men. There's no one else for them to come when they're recruiting. When they're coming to Spelman, they're coming for Black women. There's no one else for them to include, Howard and so forth, right? And so if you can excel in those schools, you'll be noticed. And so, it's analogous to sports now, kind of. And so, if you're excelling in the D2 school and in sports, the pros will find you. So if you're good at what you do, and if you actually put yourself out there, there are always going to be people who will recognize it and acknowledge it.
Yeah, I remember when I was looking at which HBCU I was going to go to. They have all these numbers for graduation rates and, the ratios and the yada, 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 who graduates in 4 years. And none of that just ever really mattered to me because I knew what I was coming to do and what I was going to do. And I think that's what he's saying, you guys, is that it's about the environment is important, but it's about what you're going to do there, wherever you are, wherever you go. I am curious as to, besides telling your son, how old is your son?
7. I've twins, boy and a girl. Yeah.
Okay, so you got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Besides telling them to go to an HBCU, what are some other things that, what will you tell them about choosing a major?
You basically have to find out kind of what you love to do. And I think that's just in life. For me, I was always a numbers guy. It was my family always. It was the show Family Ties many years ago, and it was one of the characters was Alex P. Keaton, and that's who my family kind of called me because I always numbers always did well for me, and so I kind of just gravitated to finance and to numbers, and so I think that's for anything in kind of life. You basically gravitate to what you have a passion for because you're never going to be successful if you don't have a passion for something or if you don't like what you're going to do because nothing in this world is easy. And so if you can wake up every day doing something that you kind of love and you can find that major that corresponds with that, then that's the first step. There was no plan. I didn't know that I would end up where I was right now. And the funny thing, when I was at business school, a lot of my classmates, even then at Harvard Business School, didn't know what they were going to do at the time, kind of. And so it's no pattern. So if you're 16, 17 years old, like, I don't know what I want to do, that's like 99% of the people. Very few people actually know what they want to do. In fact, I was talking to this when I was, in my 20s, I was talking to a mentor of mine and extremely successful. And I just had figured out what I wanted to do. I wanted to manage money. And he was like, Juwan, you're lucky. Like, I didn't figure that out until I was like 35 years old. And here I am looking at him like, how is this possible? You're so successful and you reached the pinnacle of your profession. But he was like, it takes time. You have to, you figure it out. And if you can decrease the probability that you're doing something that you don't want to do by always following the path of looking at what you would want to do and what makes you happy. Because happiness is really, to me, the key to anything that you're going to do. Anything you're going to do, any industry, any sector, any profession, you're going to have to work hard. When I started off as an analyst on Wall Street, which is like notorious for burnout, and especially on the lower levels, I worked 110-hour weeks before. I would literally be at work all day and work through the night. A car would be out waiting for me. I would get in the car. It would drive me across the Brooklyn Bridge. I would go into the brownstone, change, and then go right back to work. And so, but of course, I was much younger then and I had the stamina to do it. But anything in life that you're kind of doing, it's going to be varying degrees of work that you're going to have to do and the focus that you're going to have. But if you're doing something that you enjoy, you're doing something that you feel that you're learning from, even though it might not be, directly on the path that you're going to be, I think that's the perfect way to kind of think about it. And I would also say this, and you kind of asked on the end, but I really want to impress upon people that don't be afraid to fail. That's been a leading thing for me. And I fail every day, in my job. Like literally, like I know how I know how my performance is literally every minute of the day. So there's certain days when I come up, from the office, I'm like, this is not a good day today, but failure is one of the most important parts of life, I believe.
Yeah.
Because you can learn from it and hopefully you don't make the same mistake again, but also you can understand that you can persevere and there's nothing that you can't overcome if you have a passion for it and if you kind of, get back up and, fight the fight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You guys, let's get some snaps and some applause to Jawanza Hughes. Jawanza, is there a way that anyone can get in contact with you? Is there a LinkedIn page that we can look you up on?
Yes, same thing, just Jawanza Hughes, and you can just search me on LinkedIn. And I will apologize in advance if I'm a little late on a message you might send me. Sometimes I'm a little delayed on LinkedIn, but I will always, follow through.
He said, don't be afraid to send him 2 messages.
No,
I
think that you have to, sometime in life, you have to be assertive. Like, when I started at Aerial Investments, I actually was coming to Chicago to visit some friends from Morehouse for the Taste of Chicago when the Taste was a huge thing, in Chicago. And I wrote John Rogers of Aerial Investments a letter and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. Do you mind if I come through and meet you? And so, and of course, no one really writes letters these days, but back then you did. And so I kind of was just assertive. The same thing with, my mentor for my predecessor firm, Eric McKissick. I reached out to him he was the vice chairman of Aerial, and he was coming through Boston when I was at business school. We had dinner and I ended up, joining Aerial and then eventually leaving and starting a firm with him before I started my own firm. And so I think that you always have to reach out to people that are doing something that you want to do, and
Absolutely.
Follow back up with them. Some people will circle back with you. Some won't. Don't get discouraged because sometimes people's lives are really busy with twins and businesses and other things that you kind of boards that you're on. But if you kind of take that step, sometimes even if they don't respond, they remember it. And if your name ever comes back up again, they go, oh yeah, I remember this. This young lady reached out to me. This young man reached out to me, and I dropped the ball. But they're showing that initiative, and so that's one of the things that I think is really important. So don't be afraid to fail, and definitely reach out to people who are doing something that you want to do, and shoot them an email or go on LinkedIn and reach out to them. But I would say most people will follow back up with you if they're seeing that you're showing the initiative to actually reach out to them.
Absolutely. He's given good tips there for networking. You don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, will you be my mentor? No, it's about building relationships. And so putting in that time, being bold and confident in reaching out, being persistent, sometimes not stalkerish, but persistent. And fostering a relationship, building a relationship, because this is who you ask not only for advice in the future, but you also ask them to write your recommendation letters. You ask them to be references for jobs, and you ask them to kind of vouch for you if ever needed. Jawanza, thank you so much. We got to keep it going with our time. Okay. We appreciate your time. And
all right, everyone.
Yes, for sharing your love and your light. Let's go back to Morgan Yancey.
All righty, Jawanza, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your such enlightening experiences and such an exciting journey. And continuing with all this excitement, up next we have Courtney Sigali with her The Luxe brand, which was birthed from a radical out-of-this-world idea that every curly-haired girl would love. And since the brand has been launched with community in mind, it addresses issues affecting under-resourced communities, including funding, health, and wellness, as well as education incentives for at girls of risk primarily on the South Side of Chicago. It is also found in Whole Foods, Walmart, Walgreens, and Ulta. So I'll pass it over on to you, Courtney.
Hello, how is
Courtney,
everyone?
everybody. The Lux brand is in the building.
Yes, so it's Trey Lux.
Trey Lux.
Yes, Trey Lux, but I like Trey Lux with deluxe vision and reach. So I'll take the deluxe. Yes.
Absolutely. That's what we love. So you are in the hair care business.
I am. And I see everyone has some hair.
Yeah.
So you are my market. Yeah.
You have some hair. We know we definitely want to support women-owned businesses. We definitely want to support Black women-owned businesses. So we will keep an eye out for you in Whole Foods, Walmart, Walgreens, and Ulta.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the hair care business?
It's so funny because you just mentioned, like, build relationships, but don't stop. Well, that's kind of how I started this business. So
Stalking or building relationships?
Say it again.
Stalking or building relationships?
Stalking. That led to building a relationship. So let me tell you. So my background, where I went to school, I went to Ferris State University, a small school in Michigan, Upper Michigan. It was out of necessity, not out of choice. I was absolutely one of those girls who wanted to go to Spelman, but my grades said something different. My ACT said something different. So you get in where you fit in. And that's what I did. And I actually, we did not, while my parents, they made decent money. If you don't manage your money, you're not able to do things that you're supposed to do. And when I was going to college, my mom and dad, they were actually in the process of getting a divorce. We didn't have a lot of money. So someone said something to be like an RA, and I'm like, what is this? Residential advisor. God totally made provision through that role. Long story short, I ended up meeting my husband because I was actually his residential advisor, which is a big no-no. But let me tell you, the whole stalking thing is like, I'm not condoning this, people, but I would get an idea of his pattern. When is his class end? And I would just magically appear like, hey, I didn't know you were here. Like, oh, I didn't know you took class here. Anyways, so out of that, we actually, it was after college, we got married, and he had this idea of, hey, in college, you were really embracing your hair. A lot of people would stop me and ask me about my curly hair. Because I was in college from 2003 to 2007. And where we were, there were not a lot of us at all, and a lot of us were not staying after the first year, even after the first semester. So whether it was because of funding or because it was failed grades, it was a very small community. So they actually referred to me as the Black girl with curly wet hair. That's what I was, because every morning I would have to wet my hair in order to get some type of definition or moisture. And it was so hard to find products where we were. Just to give you an image, where my school was known as, what is that? It was known as what is the community called? I can't think. What is that community called where there's they don't believe in electricity. They go by horse and buggy. Amish. It was a very Amish community. There you go. Thank you, Nyla. It was the Amish community. Literally, people would pull up to Walmart in their horse and buggy. It was very much like that. So there wasn't a lot of options. I would just have to play with stuff. And, my husband, when we moved to Chicago, was like, you're trying a lot of things. Why don't we just start our own brand? And we were both doing really well in corporate. He worked for the federal government as an EEOC investigator. I worked in corporate training and development. So I thought he was just, a side hobby, hustle, whatever. But he was serious. And so we just started, really for the first 2 years, we did tons of research. Our goal was to be able to offer a product that spoke to all of the senses, because one of the things we hear from curly hair is just like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to manage it. I just want to put it up. So we were like, well, if we can make it the scent inviting and exciting and nostalgic, If we can make it to where when it comes to touch, you know, it's not greasy or you don't get the crunch, or you get the flaking. And if we can have simple products that encourage a routine and actually, instead of controlling your hair, caring for your hair, then I think we can do something. And it was really, honestly, my background is in applied speech communications. His background is in political science. So neither of us have chemistry or cosmetology, but we spent the first 2 years just really doing a lot of research to figure out what the market was missing. And that's how our brand Trelux started. We really focus on 3 areas when it comes to formulation. So moisture is the la creme of the la creme, which is making sure you have proper moisture and protein balance. We focus on manageability. So when it comes to knots and breakage, if you have the right amount of slip and if you have strengthening ingredients, you'll have less of that. So that's what all of our products really do focus on. And then we also focus on low maintenance. One of the things that we know with curly hair, yes, Cece, I see you. We know with curly hair is that it is honestly the most fragile hair out there. The curlier your hair is, the more susceptible it is to breakage. So we were saying, and we're trying to control frizz, but friction creates frizz. So the more you touch your hair, the more frizz you get, the more break. It's like this cycle. And so we were like, if we can break the cycle by making it to where you have to touch your hair maybe twice a week, as opposed to every day, we want to be able to do that. And that's really how our brand came forward.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's just a lot to unpack there. And I want to
Yes.
leave the young people with something, because I think definitely a lot of young women, at some point, they think they're going to have, you think of maybe I can do a lipstick brand, or maybe I can do a hair brand. I think that's just, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's just a common thought of a lot of young women.
Yeah.
And so how I want to talk about taking this idea, people might even go as far as to coming up with the name and coming up with what they want it to be like, or what the packaging could look like, and drawing sketches in their notebook. How do you take just those first ideas of something so cool like that, owning a hair care brand, those first ideas, and then moving that forward? I'm imagining you had those first ideas. What was that next step, and then the next step?
So I think what was easy is because Caprono, he is a totally type A personality. He is totally numbers, he's analytics, like from a operational standpoint.
That's your husband?
That's my husband, I'm sorry, yes. Oh yes, I will do that, Cece. He was able to create the business plan. Like, he's very strong at the whole business plan. So he's the one who put that in place. And the first thing that we did is identify who is our target audience. We just asked that question. What is it that they want, and where are they going to get it? And what are the gaps? And sometimes the gaps are, I think in the curly hair industry, we think that the gaps are products. Like, this is why we have a gazillion products now in such a short amount of time. Because when I went to curly in 2003, it was curls and Diva Curl. Like, it wasn't a lot of different brands out there. It was it was just a small amount. And from a marketing standpoint, we wanted to stay true to simplicity. And that was our biggest focus. We've been around now for a little bit more than 10 years. And if you look, we only have 9 products total. But those not, yes, we have one. I love it. Those 9 products has allowed us to be a multi-million-dollar business with just 9 products. So our whole focus was like, if a big part is where are they going and what's missing, and what we found was missing was education. I got this product, but how do I actually use it? And so this is where we started to really build a community through, social media, through word of mouth. We had like, not say little, but we had women who were like Trelux brand ambassadors who would, have parties at their house and sell. And it was just, we really started to rally the community. And I think that's where we started, is from a very small point. So we didn't just go out there because, one, we didn't have the budget. And here's what I will say, everyone. We were doing really, really, really well. So when things didn't go right, we just threw more money at it. But it became very wasteful, very wasteful. So when we weren't doing as well in the sense of now we're pivoting to invest more time in the business, we had to be much more cognizant of our approach and just wise with the resources that we're given. And I think that's what really helps. So it was really from that point of, we would have these little pilot tests to figure out, does this image appeal to people? Everyone in my family tested the products to give feedback. So we did a lot of testing and isolation to identify if what we're trying to serve up, is it being served up? Is that message getting across? And then from there, we wanted to make sure that with our logo, because we're all about curls, so it doesn't matter your race, religion, creed, your skin tone, curls. If you have curly hair, that's what we're for. What type of images do we need to put out there for people to feel like it resonates with them? So it's really interesting because now, listen, when I started this, one of the things I loved about Going Curly was community. There are people that I would pass on college campus that I would never talk to, but because we identified with hair, we started to have conversation. And it's really just, with curly hair, regardless if your hair is wavy, curly, kinky, coily, whatever, we all have some commonalities. So we can all speak to some of the same things. And as a result of that, even though I was really excited about, promoting community within the Black community, what we are now finding, which shocked us, is that majority of our customers are white women with wavy curly hair, who a good portion of them are between the ages of, I would say, 55 to 70. So that's a subset we did not expect, but that's a very strong subset for us because people are willing to put money, either more stable and things of that nature. So I feel like I went all around the world, Felicia, but I'll put it back to you.
I feel like that's probably symbolic of your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let's touch on that just a little bit, because I think we see a lot about entrepreneurs, and we only have a couple more minutes.
Okay.
We're getting our wrap time here. But a lot of people see entrepreneurism. Their parents are encouraging entrepreneurism. You see a lot of that on social media. It's just kind of like the new thing to do. But we know it doesn't always look like we want it to look. Some people start entrepreneur journeys and they find they have to go back into a 9-to-5. Some people start entrepreneur journeys and it fails, so they have to do something else and completely pivot. Can you just share some insight on that journey and what you think people need to know before they head into it? Not to discourage anyone, but also to be realistic and to be transparent. It's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. One, it's not for the faint of heart. And two, if you don't have a map, you'll get lost very quickly. And you'll want to turn back. You want to, start at one. So for me and my husband, for the first 7 years, we had our full-time jobs and we had kids. And it wasn't until 2020 that I decided I was going to, put my hands to the plow and really just focus on building Trey Luxe. And God literally opened up doors. While the world was shutting down, God opened doors. And that's really when we started to move forward internationally to where we're in over 60 different countries right now. We're on 4 continents. It just really exploded. So I would say that I think, Joanza, you will work 110 hours, expect that. And you're going to have to, recognize what we recognize as a cycle is that every time we move forward, there was always, whether it's personal or professional, there was some big distraction that would try to keep us from moving forward. So when we started to recognize those distractions, we would pivot. And a lot of times that does require you to be alone in order to get things done and move things forward. So I would also say having resources is very, very important. Learning how to manage your capital that comes in is going to be important. And you know what? Some of the resources is not even necessarily by way of dollars and cents, but relationships. Seriously, there are This curly hair industry it's big, but it's really small. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But I've had the owner of Shea Moisture come up to me physically and say, if you need any help or guidance, I'm here to help you. Best believe I'm taking advantage of that, So it's just really about putting yourselves in positions where you can build connections, because I feel like sometimes there's not a lot of accolades that you get as an entrepreneur. Like I find I also have it to where we have a staff of 8. I'm encouraging them all the time. No one's encouraging me. Like that is my job to encourage. Like there's not reciprocity there all the time. But if you can stay the course and stay steady and diligent, you will get the results that you're looking for on the path.
I love it. And we will encourage you, Courtney.
I thank you.
We
That's
will encourage.
awesome.
We're going to do it right now. You guys give her a round of
Oh, you're so
applause, some snaps
kind.
and some claps. You're certainly representing
Yes.
the business world, and we want to support you there. This
Thank
is
you.
Trey Lux, okay?
Trey
Whole
Lux,
Foods,
yes.
Walmart, Walgreens, Ulta. Keep an eye out for the products and get you some moisturizing cream.
Yes. And I'll do this, Jackie, for the participant, or just for the I can put it like a 50% discount code in for all y'all if you want to give it a try. So
Hey,
I'll make sure
like
that you get that. Yes, absolutely.
We like a sale.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oops, you're on mute, Felicia, it looks like.
All right. Let's
right.
send it over to Morgan Yancey.
Alrighty, thank you. What an amazing background. Thank you for all the advice and especially your impact within the curly hair community. It's greatly appreciated. And as influences, we have another major influence, especially within the fashion industry, Miss Megan Smith. Megan Renee is a sustainable women's contemporary brand created in 2007 and has been worn by celebrities such as Issa Rae, Michelle Williams, Viola Davis, Jennifer Hudson, and Sheryl Lee Ralph, just to name a few. Megan draws her inspiration from the strength and beauty of women. The brand embodies strong femininity and an unmistakable boldness. The brand's signature is eye-catching prints and wearable statements with exaggerated shapes and cool and fresh new proportions. So over to you, Miss Megan.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Miss Megan.
Hi. I apologize. It's a little noisy. I'm in New York. It's a noisy street. So.
Oh, my goodness. Where are you in New York?
52nd and 8th Avenue. So right in Hell's Kitchen.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. A New York fashion designer. I don't talk to one every day.
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome because we did hair care like the beauty industry, and now we're going to talk about the fashion industry because, again, like I said, for that, I think this is something that a lot of young women at some point, and maybe young men, we have to include them too, but at some point you might find yourself drawing sketches of clothing and you might be like, I'm going to be a fashion designer. It's one of those dream careers and you're out here doing it in New York. Good for you. Snaps for you.
Thank you.
Yes. How did you turn your sketches in a notebook, assuming you had that, and turn it into something real and tangible?
Well, I was always like drawing and sewing ever since I was little. My grandmother taught me how to sew and bought me my first sewing machine. But when I initially went into college, I really didn't think that it was a career that I could make a lot of money from. So I originally started as a vet med major. And, but I was sewing and dressing people in my dorm room. And I was just like, this isn't what I really want to do. I really want to do fashion. So I ended up changing my second year. And then from then on, it just so many doors open. So I graduated, moved to LA, found a job in the industry, just working as an assistant designer, and then kind of worked my way up from there. So then once I was designing for these different companies, doing private label for like Macy's, JCPenney's, Nordstrom's, like moderate kind of level things like as a designer. And then so I started to sew and create pieces on the side on my own. So then my brain started churning and I'm like, I would have all these relationships with all these fabric vendors and they would have closeout fabrics, which they would sell these fabrics at a really cheap price. So what I would do is take the closeout fabrics and then create collections from those closeout fabrics. And so I was able to get a really good markup. And so that's how I initially started my line, just doing small pieces here and there. Then I found a local manufacturer in LA that was willing to work with emerging designers. And so I would create small production batches. And then I started my online store and started to sell those pieces online. So then on, I just kept working at it. I still held a full-time job the whole time, just because I needed that money to support starting a brand. And starting a clothing brand is really, really hard. And I think one of the things that helped me is I had all these connections within the industry, and I knew how to do this at a way that was substantial for me. And I knew how to cut corners and things like that and build relationships. So then on, I just kept trucking and building the brand. I applied for any grant, any opportunity, any competition that they would have for designers. And the good thing is the industry is really big on supporting Black designers. So I was able to really make some moves and strides that way. And so here we are.
Here we are. I mean, I just feel like you wrapped up probably an incredible, fulfilling, but long, hard, and exciting journey.
Yeah, very long and hard.
Yeah. You just tried to squeeze that in 45 seconds.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, so let's unpack it just a little bit. Where did you go to school?
I went to Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas. So I'm originally from Kansas City.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I
Yeah.
worked in Southwest Missouri. I worked in Joplin, Missouri. So
Okay.
I'm a bit familiar with Kansas and Missouri. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And so you were there, and I feel like that's a really big, bold decision. Did you say you were training to be a vet and then you
Yeah.
switched your major to fashion in Kansas?
Yes. Believe it or not, like a lot of, aspiring fashion designers, they think they have to go to these big fashion schools, but you really don't. Kansas State has a really good textile program and fashion department. And so from there, once I switched, I was able to really grow and learn and kind of like become my own, designer. And so it was like kind of like a big fish in a small pond kind of thing. But I think being in that environment really kind of built my character and helped me kind of solidify that this is really what I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's talk about some of these celebs that you have ended up dressing. How do you get to that? I mean, I know you talked about relationships and maintaining those relationships, but these are some huge names when we're talking about Issa Rae and J Hud and Viola Davis. I know it's a lot of Chicago people on here, so we like some J Hud.
Yeah. So so as I was building the brand, I started to slowly add these pieces to my business. And one of the biggest things that's helped me is I found a really good PR rep in LA that works with emerging designers. And so me and her built a relationship. And so she takes the collections whenever I'm finished with them and she pushes it out to different magazines and stylists. And so I was able to create some really good relationships with stylists within the industry and different magazines. And so, one of the good things about the industry, they're always willing to support emerging designers. If you stay diligent and, you really have a strong voice and a unique perspective to bring to the industry, they'll want to give you a shot. So she would just push my line out and push my collection out and give my pieces to different stylists and would just hope and pray that, they decide to wear it. And it's been really, I've gotten a really good response. And that's really the thing that's really helped propel my brand forward.
Absolutely. I saw you shaking your head when we were talking to Courtney about the entrepreneurial journey and being that it's not for the faint of heart. And so I guess I want to know about a time that you thought you might quit or go back to that 9 to 5 or do something else. And what did you do instead? I mean, clearly you kept going, but I'm sure that wasn't like an easy overnight decision. So yeah, can you tell us about one of those times and then what happened inside of you to make you keep going?
So a full transparency, I have those times all the time. It's not like a one-time thing. I think deciding to be an entrepreneur, just like Courtney said, it's really, really, it's a hard, long journey. I think one of the biggest things that's helped me is this is ultimately what brings me joy and what I want to do. And this is my passion and my dream. And so I think you always have to remember your why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to have this brand? Why are you in this career? And that's one of the things that's kind of like brought me back to home. And then whenever I do have these moments where I'm like, I just want to stop doing this or this isn't working, like God would always open some sort of door for me. And that's how I kind of take it as, I'm on the right path and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think you just have to be really in tune to who you are and why you're doing what you're doing and why you want to start this business or this brand. And I think when you always go back to the why and kind of shut out the noise and not really look too much for like the monetary success or the popularity, because I think you can get sidetracked by wanting to have those things. But at the end of the day, if you ultimately get fulfillment and this is what you really want to do, I think those are the things that push you forward because it is really hard.
Absolutely. I want to, of course, let anyone know if they have any questions, they can jump in the chat. If anybody wants to chime in with a point, a comment, or a question, now would be the time to do that. Before we go, is there anything that you can leave us with for our young people as they get ready to step out? Of course, we have a lot of teens here. We also have a lot of parents who are listening as well.
I think the biggest thing is I just want students to know, like, if there's something you want to do, go for it. Like, don't wait. Don't second guess yourself. Like, go full force and go hard for what it is you want to do and what you want to accomplish. I think that is the biggest thing. Like, always have this sense of urgency because I just think, time is of the essence. So, and I think that's one of the biggest things that's always been beneficial for me is if there was an opportunity or something I wanted to achieve, I just went for it. And be fearless in your pursuit, because I think within those pursuits, like even if you fail, there's always something that you're going to learn from it. And I think that's how you grow and build and develop character. So just go for it, whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah. And Jackie wants to know how you made Amazon Prime's Making the Cut fashion design competition show.
So I was applying to Project Runway several times and I would get so many no's. They rejected me probably like 5 or 6 times. And so one of the directors from the show, she knew that I kept applying and she's like, hey, I'm starting this other new show that I want you to apply for. It's kind of similar to Project Runway, but this is the premise. And so I applied, not really knowing. I was like the first cast of the first season. We didn't know what we were getting into. And then I kind of kept interviewing and I didn't hear anything. And then they would ask me to submit my work. And so it was kind of like up in the air. And then just one day they're like, okay, the show is on. And so Amazon created this show where we traveled to New York, Paris, and Tokyo and competed for this huge prize where we made many collections. And then we had competitions and there were some amazing judges. Naomi Campbell was a judge, Heidi Klum, Tim Gunn. So I got to travel to Tokyo and Paris and create these amazing collections, which was a dream come true, and compete against other designers. And so I didn't win the competition, but I made it all the way to the end and finished like 4th place. But that competition and the press that I got from it and the recognition and just the praise from like Naomi Campbell, like really kind of solidified that this is what I wanted to do. And now that I think back, I didn't win, but I won in so many ways after that. I kind of consider myself like the Jennifer Hudson of
Yes.
Yeah, like she didn't win, but she got so much from it. And like I've had so many amazing opportunities and just things that are coming up that even though I didn't win, I could kind of look back and see why I didn't win, because that ultimately wasn't my path to win it, but what I got from it was so huge. And so that's another example of like, you get these no's, but you keep going. Like Project Runway rejected me so many times, but I know that that ultimately wasn't where I was supposed to be. And it was with Making the Cut. So
yeah. Exposure and experience.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of that. And I was literally thinking about J Hud too, which I feel like some of our teen guests may not have been alive when she was on.
Yeah, yeah.
But Jennifer Hudson today, and Jennifer Hudson was just somebody named Jennifer.
Yep. And she kept
Who
going
went on this show and didn't win, and she turned it into something else. So
yeah, and it was
really cool.
It was definitely one of those moments too, because I had such a big fan base, and they were like, "Oh, you should have won." And I get emails to this day with people like, "You should have won, you should have won," and they ripped you off. And
yeah,
but at the end of the day, I ultimately look at it and be like, "That was my path, and it opened so many other doors, and I wouldn't have had it any other way."
Your path is your path. Do you have an Instagram that we can follow you at, or
yeah,
a way to get in contact, a way to see designs, the business?
Yeah, so my site is shop, like you're going to shop Megan, Megan, Renee, Renee. And then my Instagram is shop_Megan Renee. And then my personal Instagram is in the bio. So yeah, and then I'm also on LinkedIn. And then I'll share my email with the students if they have any questions or anything. So yeah, that's how you
Shop_Megan.
Megan Renee, Renee.
Okay.
And then my personal Instagram is in the bio. It's kind of a weird handle, but if you just click it, it's like Megan Renee with some underscores in the beginning and end. So like 2 underscores, I think.
Yes, I'm gonna find you.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
No
We
problem. Thank you for
appreciate-
having me.
Yes, we appreciate you and your time. I see some snaps already coming in. Let's go ahead
Hey.
because we love to see some Black girl magic. Yes, we do.
I know. I love seeing all this today too. This is like a great Saturday.
Yes, yes. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our Saturday so we can get to the rest of our Saturday. And I think Morgan Yancey is going to take us out. But Megan Smith, thank you so much. And we will continue. We'll follow you on social media and continue to follow your journey as well.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Morgan.
Absolutely. So this is my first time attending People of Prominence, and I can say I've just been inspired, and I'm so excited to apply everything I've learned from everyone today. And I want to say thank you to all our cohorts and parents, alumni, friends, and family for joining us today. Alumni, please remember to head over to our website, www.midwestcollegeproject.com, to learn more about the ongoing ICF career and life coaching we now have access to. Join us tomorrow, audience, as we plan and prepare to celebrate our founder's birthday and to celebrate our pitch during our 13th annual Toastmasters pitch competition, live streaming on our YouTube. Have a great day, everyone.
Happy birthday, Jackie. I feel like I've been celebrating your birthday for 2 months.
Thank you, everybody. That's what we do. Virgos celebrate all season. It's Virgo season. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow at the pitch competition. Good luck, everybody.